Chargers, Melvin Gordon, who's their star running back and is coming off a Pro Bowl season, wants a new contract, or he won't show up at training camp, or he won't show up to play at all this season. Now, he has to play 6 games to accrue a year, but unlike Le'Veon Bell, he is not a free agent. Remember, Le'Veon Bell didn't want to play a second year under the franchise tag. But if you don't sign the franchise tag, you're not under contract. The difference for Melvin Gordon is once they get to training camp, he doesn't show up, they can fine him for every day. And he doesn't accrue a year until he actually shows up. When you hear Melvin Gordon wants a new contract and wants to be paid as one of the highest paid running backs in the National Football League, what do you think?
I'm okay with it from the standpoint of, about the dollars and the amount. We could sit there all day and determine whether or not you want to pay him whatever he wants. I just think that as a running back and the way the league has devalued running backs and overworked running backs until they're no longer any good, or they're at a point where they go, well, I can't give you that contract. Look, you got these miles on. You're not averaging 4 yards a carry anymore.
He actually averaged 5 yards a carry last year.
Okay, so
did the rest of the backs in the backfield.
Okay,
that's why they're one of the best teams in National Football.
No doubt about it. And until they went to New England, I thought they were going to get to the Super Bowl. I really thought they were that good. But anyway, so for a running back, we saw Emmitt Smith have to sit out a couple of games in order to get paid in Dallas. You remember that?
Yeah.
Emmitt Smith missed the first 2 games of that season. The Cowboys went 0-2, and Jerry Jones pulled out his checkbook and wrote a check. And if I remember correctly, Doug, they won the Super Bowl that year.
They did.
Even though they started 0-2 and Emmitt didn't play.
They did.
So for running backs, unfortunately, this is the only way it seems as if you can get paid, is that you have to make a threat. You have to decide you're not going to play because they haven't really been taken care of. Not everybody. Some guys have gotten paid, but not everybody. Most running backs don't get paid. And by the time that they're available to make some real money, they've been beat up. Their production is on the way down because the shelf life is such a small short shelf life. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I understand what Melvin, if he really believes that what they're offering him is not good enough and he wants to get paid before he starts to go the other way and before they'll have a real case on why they shouldn't pay him and show him and prove to him with all the numbers. As you just said, he's averaging 5 yards a carry and all the backs are, but he's their main guy, and he should just try to get as much as he can and put in the effort and believe in himself. What do they call? Betting on yourself.
Yeah,
I'm going to bet on myself.
Okay. I'm going to tell you it's a mistake. Look, here's the deal. It ain't going to get any better than what he's got with the Chargers. It's just not. He plays for his head coach is a former running back and a former running back coach. And then the big difference in all the 3 big contracts for running backs in the National Football League are Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, and David Johnson. And what do they have in common? They all have rookie quarterbacks on rookie deals. So they can spend a little bit more on running backs, spend a little bit more elsewhere. Like, look, he's been hurt, dinged up 3 of the last 4 years. He has 1,000-yard season. He does find the end zone, 38 touchdowns. He's a good player. They like him. They're willing to overpay him, probably about, $9 or $10 million a year, and he wants 13 that those other guys are making. And, here's the deal. He has 2 choices. He does not have any leverage here. He can show up and make $5 million, or he can take the contract offer they gave him, which probably tops out at about $10 million a year, mostly front-loaded next couple of years, or he can play out this year, and then they can decide, do we want to franchise tag him, which would be about $13 million. So the combined would be potentially $18, $19 million if he bets on himself and the Chargers decide, let's franchise tag him next year. Or he goes out in the market, and I got to tell you, on the market, it's not going to be great. Running backs are, in fact, replaceable. They are they do have diminished. You said Emmitt Smith. Dude, that's 20 years ago.
I know. I know.
When I grew up, you talk about the 80s. When I grew up, name the team, that team was represented by the running back, right? Eric Dickerson was the Rams guy. Yep. And Marcus Allen was
Barry Sanders with the Lions.
Barry Sanders was the Lions guy. And even the Niners that were known for their passing game, they had Roger Craig, and the Chicago Bears had Walter Payton. Dude, those days are over, bro. Now you're being replaced by 2 or 3 guys that don't cost you anything.
So would
and
you,
the second you hit your second contract, good luck.
But
if I'm him, I would run back to Costa Mesa and say, hey, is that $10 million offer still available? Good. But he's got people in his ear. They're like, yo, man, you're just as good as those guys. The Todd Gurley contract is a bad one. The Rams want out of it. The Jets contract with Le'Veon Bell is a bad one because they paid there was no other market, and it wasn't just that it was overpaying a running back, which nobody likes. It was overpaying a running back that didn't have other options. Like, what are you doing? He didn't have other suitors. They didn't drive up any sort of value.
Well, but the idea when you talk about with a running back, Ezekiel Elliott is a perfect example. Cowboys aren't even close to where they would be if they didn't have that guy in their backfield.
Zeke's great. I think he's the best running back in the league.
I'm just saying. So
I agree.
And then even last year, as much as people
Melvin Gordon is not Ezekiel Elliott.
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
But I'm just saying the same way that people make the case last year about James Conner in Pittsburgh. Oh, they didn't miss Le'Veon Bell. James Conner played. He put up some decent numbers. They didn't make the playoffs. I guarantee you, Doug, if Le'Veon Bell played for that team, they would have been in the playoffs, not out of the playoffs.
Right.
So it does matter with having certain players.
No, listen, I'm not going to – it would help if Antonio Brown would show up to practice week 17.
All right, but even before then, okay.
No, I got it. I'm not – I actually agree with you there. People do diminish Le'Veon Bell and how good he is.
He's a good player.
And he's better than James Conner.
Yes.
He's better than James Conner. James Conner's good. He's better.
No doubt.
Okay?
All right.
So, but the Chargers don't think – they don't want to get out of the Melvin Gordon business. They just don't want to overpay Melvin Gordon when he's been hurt 3 of the last 4 years. He's got 1,000-yard season. He's a good player, but they're not gonna break the bank when they didn't break the bank for Melvin Ingram, who they signed and has been awesome, and Joey Bosa and all of they got dudes. I mean, Derwin James is an unbelievable player that eventually they'll try and sign, but they're not going to break the bank for anybody because this is how they're constructing their rosters so they can be successful for long term. Let's bring in John Middlecoff. He used to work in front offices and a scout in the National Football League. He's got a great podcast called 3 and Out. And Middlecoff, before you go off on Chris Paul, because I know you're a Chris Paul hater.
He's not. He's just a Chris Paul critic. How you got to be a hater?
He's a hater.
He's not a hater. He's just a critic.
I'm a hater.
Okay.
He's a
I was trying to couch it for you a little bit, John.
Let me just ask you this: if I told you the Chargers were willing to go to $10 million a year for the first couple years guaranteed, should Melvin Gordon sign that?
See, I'm not as big in the average per year. I got to know what the guarantee is.
I think it's in the 20s.
Yeah, I mean, is he signing? Because to me, he's going to want closer to the Gurley money.
No,
than
he wants Gurley money. He ain't getting Gurley money from the Chargers.
Here's my, and I'm with you, Doug. Like, he's a good player. They should want to stay in the business. Ever since they got, remember at that first year, everyone was like, "Oh my God, is this guy a bust?" Clearly, he's not.
Wisconsin. It was Wisconsin. Another Wisconsin. It was Ron Dane Part 2, right? Wisconsin running back.
He had a rough, rookie season, and no one was holding out then, But then they brought in J.J. Watt's brother, and the running game has been really good since. But he's finished 16 games one time, and I think that Todd Gurley, it's a little different. I mean, because Gurley had the knee surgery in college, we all knew about it. This one has been injuries here and there. But I don't see how the Chargers get anywhere close to that number. And to me, the Le'Veon Bell number, actually, like I would do $25-30 million for him right now, just because he is a key piece to what they're doing. He also catches the ball really well. But it is a complicated situation. It's not a black and white thing. I mean, for as much as he has no leverage, and that's where I would kind of lean. He also has some in the sense, same with Clowney, is that like teams like the Chargers and the Texans, they're trying to win a Super Bowl this year.
Yep.
They think they have a Super Bowl team this year, and say what you want about running backs, and like most people, I think they're probably never had less value running the ball, though catching it, they're a big deal. They need this guy if they're going to try to win a Super Bowl.
And John, that's the point why you have small windows, right? That team, the Chargers last year, was really good. Went to New England and laid an egg, but they feel like if they come back and they have all their pieces in place, they're going to at least be able to compete in the AFC. That's why he does, I agree, have some leverage, because once you take away a big piece, and I brought it up to Doug before you came on, everybody said, "Oh, LeVeon, the Steelers didn't miss him. James Conner, they didn't make the playoffs last year."
I want you guys to understand something. There's a couple of distinct differences between Le'Veon Bell's situation and Melvin Gordon's situation. Le'Veon Bell was not a first-round pick, so this is actually his third contract, right? So Le'Veon had the money to sit out, and Le'Veon wasn't under contract. This is where Melvin Gordon has no leverage. He has to play this year, otherwise he violates the contract. He's under contract for $5 million. He's not a free agent that has to sign.
But everybody thought Le'Veon Bell had to come back, and then there was a loophole, correct?
No. But Le'Veon Bell did not sign the franchise tender. Okay, this guy is under his 5th-year option of his rookie contract because he was a first-round pick. It actually worked out better for Le'Veon that he wasn't a first-round pick. And Le'Veon had saved up money to where he tried to make a point of it. It didn't actually work for Le'Veon. He didn't make nearly what he thought. But there's John, you understand there's two differences. One, he has deeper pockets, so he didn't have to play a year. I'm talking about Le'Veon Bell. And two, he was actually not under contract as opposed to the fines that could be accrued by Melvin Gordon if he doesn't play.
True. But the one thing I would say about Melvin Gordon, and definitely Clowney, too, who I think we expect to see a big holdout, too. Clowney was the number 1 overall pick, so he got a lot of money. It's not like Melvin Gordon was a third-round pick. I think he was a 15th pick in the draft. So I looked at it yesterday. I think he's made $16 million heading into this season. So it's not like he's been making $700K for the last 4 years. Ultimately, he wants to probably double his money. We all do. But it's not like he's in the poorhouse either. So I don't know. I'm with you. I would give him a little bump, but I don't know if he's just necessarily looking for. Remember a couple years ago? It's probably like 5 or 6 now. Jamal Charles was holding out, and then Kansas City just gave him, like $12 million guaranteed, basically just like a kicker, and he got him back into camp. Could they do something like that? I think the hard part here is this guy's looking for a long-term deal, because when you just look at his game logs, and he knows this better than anyone, he can't stay on the field. So it's just the risk of. Le'Veon Bell, like you said, had the one franchise tag year, so he had banked, $12, $13 million just in that one season. I think this guy's terrified of he comes to plays and in October tears an ACL, and then he never gets any money, and it's just over, which I understand, and I think that's always kind of the thing you're fighting as a running back is you're one injury away, and I know Colin talked about this yesterday. It kind of is the one position, especially on offense, where you get hit every play. You're not protected at all. So I do feel for that. Running back is my personal favorite position. It encompasses everything. You got to run the ball, you got to block, you got to catch the ball. Like the best running backs are the ultimate football players because they literally do everything.
Yeah.
What about the Dak Prescott? Obviously, he said, "Hey, I deserve what I get. I'm not looking to give anybody Dallas a hometown discount." Would you pay Dak from what you've seen so far? Is he worthy of being one of the highest paid quarterbacks based on what the Cowboys have won 2 division titles in 3 years under him?
Well, I heard just a snippet of Dak saying that, and the one thing I don't quite understand, I think Jerry would have no problem taking care of him. Obviously, they don't want to pay him like Russell Wilson money, but pay him a lot of money. Think how much money you just make as a Dallas Cowboy quarterback, and it's pretty clear in that organization they're not pinching pennies. Yep. They will do it. I mean, they have a loaded roster. So if he took, quote unquote, a discount, I hate saying that when a guy's going to make $25, $30 million a year. But let's say he said, you know what, I'll sign a contract extension, pay me $23 million a year, and that extra little buffer would help them keep Byron Jones and Amari Cooper and Zeke Elliott, and just keep the whole squad together because their roster on paper is pretty exceptional. I think it's probably a top 5, top to bottom roster on paper, in the NFL. But when you pay that quarterback enormous money, you usually, especially with them, that they have premium blue chip guys that make a lot of money, you're going to lose a couple, and that's going to hurt Dak. Like, Dak, are you prepared to be Aaron Rodgers? And just carry this team on your back? You're not. You're just not good enough. So you need a better team, which you already have. And I think he's thinking Russell Wilson. Well, Russell Wilson just started making all this money. They lost guys. They never, skipped a beat. Well, you're not Russell Wilson.
Right. Russell Wilson's been to 2 Super Bowls, won 1.
And blew the other one.
Completely different calculus. John Middlecoff's our guest. 3 and Out is the podcast. He's former scout in the National Football League. He joins us. Rob Parker, Doug Gottlieb, in for Dan, the Danettes. This is the Dan Patrick Show. You mentioned Jadeveon Clowney, who was the number 1 overall pick, had some injuries early on, was thought to possibly be a bust, and then all of a sudden it started to live up to his ridiculous physical attributes with his play on the field. And you got this weird situation in Houston where they're going to let's just go without a GM. Everybody's kind of got their area, and and apparently the assistant GM and the head coach can't agree on whether or not they want to pay him, and so they're not going to pay him, and now he's going to hold out. How does this work in Houston without a GM?
I don't know if you guys had a chance, but Chris Ballard filled in for Peter King, the GM for the Indianapolis Colts, and you just read that and you go, whoa, the Colts kind of got it going on right now. And that's by far the Houston Texans, biggest rival, given they're in their division. You got to go through them. They just beat them in the playoffs. And the Houston Texans now, like you said, just basically punted on the GM, which I'll be the first to say, a head coach is more important than a GM in the NFL. But a GM is very important, especially during the season when little things happen. And you don't, when a guy gets injured, just to bring in the next practice squad guy and get streamlined. Bill O'Brien doesn't have the time. He's the play caller. What's up with Bill O'Brien not being able to get along with anyone? I've always been a Bill O'Brien defender. When I worked for the Eagles, I just went to Penn State one weekend to watch him conduct a practice and was like, whoa, this guy is big time. And then obviously he went on to have a bunch of success. He's been in the NFL, and he's actually had success in the NFL. He makes the playoffs every year, but he just can't get along with GMs. And now the Clowney situation, and I would probably lean with Bill O'Brien with Clowney. I'm not paying you Khalil Mack or Aaron Donald money, but Clowney is a really, really good player, and now it's already out in the media that Bill O'Brien doesn't really like him, but the GM liked him. It's not an ideal situation, especially, at least the Chargers situation, it's just kind of normal business. A running back wants to get paid.
Right.
We all know they like him. It's not really that weird. This one's already kind of weird. Does Bill O'Brien not even like Jadeveon Clowney at all? In a perfect world, would he just get rid of him? Because it was pretty clear that he was on the trade block. Just no one was going to trade them a premium pick and then also pay, $80 million guaranteed like they had no problem doing for Khalil Mack because he's not that good of a player. I'm borderline not out on their team because I do think their team is talented, but there's just something missing with the Texans, and it kind of starts with the head coach. Something's weird about that situation. I mean, this whole GM debacle, he's on his second GM in a year and a half.
Yeah.
How's that even possible?
I'm not sure. There were some things done by the previous GM which did make you scratch your head to begin with. All right, last thing. Why do you hate Chris Paul so much?
It just bothers me. Just the flopping. I remember going to a playoff game, Mark Jackson's last year, when Chris was still really good, and just watching him smother Steph. He looked like Darrelle Revis in his prime. Steph couldn't get away from him. And then he just became this curmudgeon, angry. He just not a very joyful player to watch, and he's gotten worse the last couple of years. The flopping, Doug, even if you appreciate
No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
It's out of control.
Yeah, and there's that thing that older NBA players do, that guys that pick up ball do, where when they can't play, they want to fight you. And he kind of does. He started to get to that, which you're like, come on, man. The only thing
why can't Chris get a little like Bill O'Brien? Can Chris get along with anybody? Over a long period of time?
I don't know, and I'm sure that's one of the reasons that he's in Oklahoma City or in flux instead of in Houston.
We make fun in where I live in the Bay of Chris and Russ, but I will say for Russ, again, very flawed player. At least people they don't love playing with him. But at least they like him personally. It feels like these guys don't really even like Chris, the person.
I don't know. The Banana Boat dudes do. But, yes, I do think Russ is a really good dude. But Russ plays with some of that same anger and, does some of the exact same stuff. All right, we got to run. Hi, I'm Doug Gottlieb from Fox Sports Radio, and you need to subscribe to the Fox Sports Radio YouTube channel where you can hear and see me. Why not? Plus, everybody else who's awesome here in Fox Sports Radio.